good reviews is very, very, very important because the people who follow you, they might not go to you if you don't have a good number of good reviews. So good reviews is still very relevant, but you've got to be relevant on all levels. And you have to be a normal human being. It can't just be, always working on the patients. They don't want to see that. That's boring for them.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao, and I want to thank the sponsors who allow me to do this. I want to thank the doc sites and Cloud Dentistry, so please spend some time and check out what they can do for your practice. I'm really excited today to speak with a Bird Eye client, someone I met through that relationship. She's a dentist in Coral Gables, Florida. She is partnered with Invisalign and the NFL, so she has a lot of NFL patients of hers. We're going to call this episode Overhauling Your IG Game. In other words, Instagram, for those that don't get that. Gina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why don't you give the listeners and the viewers a little bit about you, your practice, kind of give us a little bit of an overview of who Gina Marcus is.
I'm originally from Miami, so I'm treating my patients here in my community that I grew up in, which is really nice. And I began my journey about 20 years ago, purchased my practice here and been going ever since. And in 2018, I took the course that changed everything, which is Re-Engage with Dr. David Galler. So shout out to David. And joined the AACA, the American Academy of Clear Aligners. And my Invisalign game really changed from there. So I was able to really take the Invisalign thing and move my practice in the growth upward direction because of Invisalign and the mentorship from David. As far as the NFL piece is concerned, the NFL became and Invisalign became partners right before the Super Bowl last year. And they opened it up for general dentists to become one of the partnered offices with the teams. So that's kind of where that took off.
Gotcha. So let's talk real quick about, for those that don't know about the AACA, I don't know if you know, I was one of the original board members when it was called the AACO, the American Academy of Clear Orthodontics. Obviously, my career went in a different direction, so I stopped doing as much Invisalign as I was. I was doing about 120 cases a year in my heyday. So David, and I've known David for years. We used to lecture together for Invisalign at various meetings. So David's amazing. I was just at the meeting most recently in June of this year, and he does a phenomenal event. But I was on an organization. So why don't we spend a little bit of time talking about that organization? You know, obviously, I'm not affiliated. I know you were just elected to the executive board, you told me. But talk a little bit about the AACA, what it's done for you, because all I hear about from the doctors who are involved, it is the organization to be part of. It's an amazing camaraderie. I know Michael Wallach. I know so many people involved in the organization as well. But why don't you kind of give your perspective from things?
So from my perspective, when I joined, it was kind of like this big monster that you don't really understand, much like any of the other big monster organizations that are out there in dentistry. But this one is different because they really make you feel comfortable and part of the family, and you can ask questions without sounding like you're asking a dumb question, and nobody really is judging you based off of your questions, and they just are there to help. And I have found that when I joined the board, everybody was very welcoming. And so that kind of camaraderie that David has created is really special. And it's been a really nice ride because I've been able to make connections with other doctors in the country. And if I have a patient who's moving to wherever, I can just go into the doc locator on the website, plug in their zip code, and 5 or 6 doctors pop up, and I can be like, oh, I know this person. I'll send them to you. You know, I'm sending you to my friend, which is really nice because I can pick up the phone, call whatever doctor, and be like, hey, I'm in the AACA. And they're like, okay, cool. I'll help you take care of your patient. So it's been really, 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 really great.
That's awesome. I know that. I mean, the camaraderie is great. Talk about the learning that goes on. Talk about for people who are, because the Re-Engage, you obviously have to take it. You actually have to learn David's methods of getting people to do Invisalign. I mean, it's like a transformation of your practice, like you had mentioned. So for those, again, that have heard about it, that don't know anything about it, a lot of people think it's like a cult following. You know, it's really interesting to read the comments online about things in these groups that I'm in. But again, talk about what you learn. Talk about how you get that transition or change in the practice trajectory because of what you learn from them.
So the main premise of what David is teaching is how the plastic moves teeth in the mouth in a healthy, you know, manner that's predictable with good results. But the main thing that kind of flipped the switch for me and for many others as well is in dentistry, you see an x-ray of a bombed out tooth and you're like, I got to take care of that first. Well, is that bombed out tooth really going to make or break the situation if the patient doesn't have any pus coming out, or there's, nothing's going on, it doesn't hurt them, there's no symptoms, there's no nothing. And it's kind of strange for us to kind of switch gears that way and think about, well, they also have all of their lower anterior teeth completely crowded and they're never going to get healthy. It doesn't matter what intervention we do, they will never get healthy, those gums, if we don't straighten the teeth. So it's kind of he puts this picture of an x-ray of a bombed out tooth next to lower anterior crowding. And he's like, which one is more important? And it's kind of like, they're both important. What do you handle first? So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, when I was part of the organization, I think he also puts that it's also not almost every patient is technically a candidate for Invisalign because they have some form of, it's not only an aesthetic concern now, it's also occlusal concern because, like you said, the crowding in the front is more of they may not like the way their teeth look, but from your perspective, there are so many patients who have crowding that don't look at it from a cosmetic perspective. You have to open their eyes up to see that it's a concern for long-term health of their teeth.
100%.
Gotcha.
100%.
Well, we went off on a little tangent there, which happens on these, but I'm glad you were able to explain kind of your relationship with the AACA and a little bit about it. So I want to talk a little bit about your activity on social media. So obviously, I'm very active on social. That's how people know about me. I love other dentists who have done that and taken their, not only personal stuff, but their professional stuff to the next level because they're on Instagram and those other social media channels. So talk about, how your practice has kind of embraced social media, how you have embraced social media, how you use it to kind of promote stuff. Again, I know you're posting stuff with your patients on there that are part of the NFL with the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the wall behind you is one of these picture walls where people take pictures. So, kind of talk about those things because I'm interested to hear your perspective on things.
So I think that social media is really where advertising is going to be heading, depending on who your audience is. So in Miami, my audience is all on social media. And if it's not on Instagram, it's on Facebook. So I'm on both, as you've seen. Basically, what I'm doing to leverage is I post every day. If there's something to see on one of my pages or profiles every single day. If it's not on my personal one that I'm working out or I'm with my kids, it's at the office and I'm with my NFL players or a smile transformation like I posted 2 days ago. Just something up there every day. Patients want to see that we're also normal human beings and not just like a stiff, sterile environment of a dentist that they're typically afraid of. So it makes us more personable and they kind of feel like they know us already when they come in. I can give you a perfect example. A girl that I went to high school with follows us on both Facebook and Instagram. She had asked me about 7 years ago about her daughter's baby tooth that, was having an issue, wasn't falling out or whatever. And I helped her through it. No problem. Because it's just a direct message away. And her dentist retired during COVID. And she texted me or DM'd me through Facebook. And she said, are you taking new patients? And I said, of course. And of course, this is the perfect way to grow the practice because this is an easy interaction with somebody who I already know who follows me. And basically I asked her, I said, what made you choose me? And she said, oh, you guys just look like you are always having a great time in your office and that you guys love what you do. And then when she went through the patient experience, she was like, oh my God, I love it here. She's brought her mom, she's brought her kids, she's brought her brothers, she's bringing everybody. So it's connections that you make through with people that really is the key here.
Gotcha. I'm a huge fan of social media. I use it professionally outside of my dental practice. I embraced it a lot in my dental practice, but I didn't see the lift from that. But it's interesting. You talk about stories, and I've told this story before. I had a patient come in. He's a what you would call an influencer on Instagram. I think he had 80,000 followers. He was a makeup artist for local celebrities in the Philadelphia area. And he came in and he had just had a temporary crown placed by another office. And it was like yellow when his teeth were white. It was bad. And I said to him, why are you coming to me now? And he had an interesting comment. He said to me, well, I used to follow you. I follow you on Instagram. And for a while there, you were very active, which made you relevant to me. And then all of a sudden you stopped posting on Instagram and you really became irrelevant by not posting anymore. He obviously went to another office that he saw on Instagram and he had a really bad experience. They did a terrible temporary crown and he's now going through Invisalign in the office, but we obviously fixed his front teeth to make them look good. But that comment that he made really hit home that I was no longer relevant because I wasn't posting on social anymore. So I agree with you, that, it really has, it really can take your practices to the next level if you know what you're doing and if you have the patient following from that. Look, I'm very forward with the fact that my online reviews have always been something that has attracted patients to my practice. And that's how I grew my practice, because I did it in a time that reviews weren't what they are now per se. So online reputation was my main way to bring new patients into the practice. And it always was. In your case, it sounds like, your social media is an amazing way for you on top of personal referrals, I'm assuming, for you to attract these new patients to the practice.
Yeah, good reviews is very, very, very important, because the people who follow you, they might not go to you if you don't have a good number of good reviews. So good reviews is still very relevant, but you've got to be relevant on all levels. And you have to be a normal human being. It can't just be, always working on the patients. They don't want to see that. That's boring for them. So that's why we have, picture walls, and we're doing funny reels, and we have to stay relevant. And that's really key. That is really key.
Yeah, and you talk about reviews, but also it's the omni-channel approach, which is the multiple channels to be on. So it's reviews, and you mentioned it just a second ago. You said, "Hey, someone may find you on social, but if you don't have the reviews to back up your reputation, they're not going to come in." You need a combination of both of these things, plus more potentially to bring these patients in. The best thing about the reviews is actually it's the social proof you need, that when they already know who you are, and that's really, really important. So I want to talk about a little bit more about your Invisalign partnership with the NFL. So there's obviously, I'm assuming they're picking one dentist in the areas to partner with the NFL team that's in the specific area. Obviously, there's only certain cities that this would work in because there's only 30 plus NFL teams. So talk about how you got that connection. Talk about the effect that's had on bringing patients into the office outside of the NFL relationship, because obviously you're posting pictures with these NFL stars that, younger people really relate to and look up to and stuff. So talk about, and I remember, if I'm correct, you had treated a member of the Miami Dolphins who got traded to the Rams. And then after he won the Super Bowl, you posted that he was, about his Invisalign going on. So it's obviously people move around in this industry. So just talk about that whole thing, because I was really fascinated by that. And I'm sure that's had a massive effect on your practice as well.
Yeah, it definitely has. So basically, I wasn't the chosen one by any means. Basically, you could opt in. Any dentist who's an Invisalign provider can opt into this choice. But people are expecting the players to fall in their laps. Well, I don't do anything. I don't expect anything to be given to me ever. So I just go out and get it. So basically, I had to start making connections with some of these players. Once one came in, the rest all followed because of his recommendation, which was amazing. So we have a total now of 21 NFL players. And I say NFL players, not just Miami Dolphins, because a lot of them, move around. We have one on the Saints. We have one that's going, he's up in the areas where he's going. One's in Arizona. So, they come in and out. I help them when they can. And again, the ACA network helps me transfer them out when they move around the town, move around the country. As far as the Dolphins are concerned, the Dolphins were not one of the chosen teams initially to partner with Invisalign with the NFL. I made it happen. So I said, listen, I have these 6 guys in my office. Let's get it going. And I spoke to the higher ups at Invisalign and I made it happen. So the Dolphins are in now because I pushed for them to be part of it. And I'm really glad that I did, because they look really good for this year, for this season. So we're really excited about that.
That's really interesting that that you were able to make that happen on your own and recognize the power that can have. So on a follow-up on that, talk about the effect that's had on bringing other patients into the office because they see you doing Invisalign on these people. They, like I said, they look at some of them are backup players, but you know, the fact is that you have these professional ball players in your office. You're taking pictures with them, and talk about the effect that's had on the practice.
Officially, I'm not the dentist to the Dolphins, but everybody thinks that I am because of the social media presence, which has been fantastic because I go anywhere and they're like, "Oh, you're the Dolphins dentist." Like I run the Miami Study Club for the AACA, and like the first meeting, the reps were like, "Oh, you're the one. You're the Dolphins dentist," and I'm like, "Well, unofficially, but no." It's been very helpful, and I have a lot of people who are Dolphin fans. Miami fans are really crazy. We love the Dolphins, whether they're doing amazing or they suck. We're doing, everything we can to boost, for our team. And and I say we because I'm also a Dolphins fan since I'm a child. So I can say that. And it's just been great. So I have another example of a friend of mine from high school. We bump into each other all over town. And when he finally was like, "You're treating the Dolphins players? I want my Invisalign with you." And I was like, "Okay, great." And now he brought himself and his wife. So it grows in that way because again, I'm relevant to my audience.
That's awesome. I think that's amazing. Have you gotten any other athletes out of the from not from the NFL because of your relationship with the Dolphin players?
Yes. So recently we have, I think we have three now of the football players from from University of Miami.
And any other sports like Miami Heat or anything like else? Or
We're working on it.
that's really good.
We're working on it.
That's really cool. Look, I'm a sports geek. I love sports, and I love the ability. I have had a couple of non, I would say, known players or people related to like the baseball industry, right? Were patients of mine in Philadelphia, and I've gotten a lot of perks from it. I just never explored. I have a couple of people who are on TV, but I never pushed those relationships. But I think nowadays it would be a different relationship just because of the social abilities of these people to help get you. And I'm sure you don't even ask them. They just you probably ask them for permission to post their photo when they're in your office. But overall, I'm sure they're going to post stuff about their experiences as well, which probably has huge, because they have huge followings, which has huge effect on the way people look at you. That's amazing. I think that's really good. Something else that we didn't plan to talk about, but I'm curious about it because I see you post about it. Talk about your the aesthetic stuff that you do in the practice, the Botox and the fillers and those types of things, and the effect that have, because a lot like the new owner of my practice, Dr. Han, she took classes and started doing it when I was the owner of the practice. And it's amazing how many people came in because she was offering those types of services. And I think a lot of dentists are maybe not comfortable doing that and don't understand the abilities that, or what they can and can't do with it. So I see your post again on Instagram. So can you talk a little bit about, that effect and that what you do in terms of the office and that relationship it has?
Okay, so I was judged a lot by starting to do the aesthetic stuff, the Botox and the fillers. Like, "You're a dentist, why are you doing that?" Well, as dentists in dental school, we spend 80% of gross anatomy year studying from the neck up. So who else is going to understand the musculature, the nerves, and who else can provide a bird eye view, to borrow your name there, of the face and how the lips and the face and the eyes and everything kind of balance each other out. It's not just teeth in the head. It's really the whole thing. It's the balance of the lips. It's the balance of the muscles, all of that stuff. So I got trained a long time ago, but I've been retrained recently by a great friend of mine, Tracy Blessing. She has her own company and she trains other docs, and she does private, courses at their office. So of course I took her class, level 1 and level 2, and I just ran with it. I love it. I do it to myself. That was the original reason that I got certified, was so I could do it on myself. So basically, it's really nice for the patients when they're in the office already for their hygiene visits every 3 to 6 months. Botox wears off every 3. So they're already here. So, "Hey, you want your Botox today?" They say, "Yeah, sure." That saves them a trip to go anywhere else. And they're already comfortable with us. Like, they trust my hygienist more than they trust whoever is doing it at the dermatology or the cosmetic surgeon or whoever's office. They have a relationship with my hygienist. So it's been a very nice, easy add-on for any dental practice. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact me. I'm actually starting to train with Tracy So I'll be going with her now to do trainings in people's offices. So it's very exciting. I love it.
And how do you promote that in the office? Do you, other than you posting, do you like, for instance, I could never tell or say to a woman, "Hey, you want Botox?" They look at me. That doesn't work for me. That's a very uncomfortable conversation for me to have when I was in practice. How do you promote it? Are you using signs, or do you feel comfortable enough to bring it up to a patient that they may need something? Talk about that, because I know that's a very uncomfortable thing for some people.
So you don't know me that well, but I'm just very forward. I just speak what's on my mind. I tell people the way it is. And I ask them, have you ever thought about Botox before? Or they say, what can I do about my gummy smile? Or they say, my lips are crooked, or something that bothers them. And typically it's the hygienist. The hygienist is really the most trusted person in the office for them. So, and it's on, the computer screen in front of them where they're seeing my slideshow that shows that I do all of these procedures. And then I come in and I ask them, have you ever thought about it before? So it's not like, hey, you need it, you look like crap, but you know, it's there, it's present. And they know that I'm doing it on myself because, again, they're seeing it on my social media. So and it makes it easier also that I'm doing it on myself and that my hygienists have it, my assistants all have it, my front office people have it. So it makes it easy.
Yeah, I actually recorded. They wanted me to be a guinea pig, so I actually had it done, and we recorded it via video, and I ended up having Spock. I was Spocking. They called it afterwards. They had to put more in, but it did a pretty good job of getting rid of most of my lines. Um,
Good.
so I had it done to me too. So I know what the feeling is now when patients have it done. You know, I haven't had much dental work. I've only had like one cavity or maybe one and a half cavities or something in my life. Very small one, second one. So I haven't had that much dental work. So when patients say, "You probably know what I'm going to," I'm like, "No, I don't really. Sorry." So, um, so before we give your contact information, so if anybody's listening to this and they want to learn more about what you do with Instagram or what you do with, the aesthetics, I talked about this little fun section I like to do, which is called the pod deck section. And I'm going to ask you some questions. Again, nothing inappropriate for those that are listening. It's all appropriate questions. These are going to be based on business, as I mentioned to you, and it's using a pod deck called the Hustle. So this is very common in my episodes. So I'm going to ask you some questions. The point of this is to kind of think about it for a second. You don't have to do a long-winded answer, but don't do one like yes or no, or just think about it for a second. So the first question is, what motivates you?
I don't know. I just love everything that I do here. So just coming to work every day honestly motivates me enough right now. I've been doing it for 20 years. What motivates me honestly is to see the results and the way that I'm able to make an impact on my patients' lives. And I've been seeing a lot more of that recently. So it just drives me to keep doing my best and just keep pushing.
That's great. Um, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming a successful business owner or practice owner?
You just got to be very tenacious. You got to go and get what you want. Nobody's going to deliver it to your lap. Just like dental school. If you want something, you have to be a hard worker. You have to have grit. Is there a formula? No, but you have to kind of have it in you. I feel like there's two types of dentists out there. There's associate mentality and there's owner mentality. And if you're wavering in between, stay an associate. If you're really wanting to be an owner, go all in, 2 feet, go.
Gotcha. How do you know when you have the right idea for your practice?
Oof, sometimes I don't. But if I have a new idea that I'm bringing to the practice, I always, I have a great relationship with my team, as everybody can see on Instagram. We talk about stuff together and it's a group effort. So it's like, I have this idea. This is where I want to go. I give them my vision and I say, how do you think is the best way to get there? And we talk about it and we decide on a way and we do it. Then we reevaluate. And if we have to pivot or correct, course correct, then we do. You know, Nobody's perfect the first time out.
Gotcha. What kind of, and this is a good follow up to that. What kind of culture exists in your practice, and how did you establish it?
Ah, I love the culture in my office. It's just, we always have a great time. We love each other. I know that sounds very strange, but we're really a family and it sounds very cliche, but what you see on Instagram is real. Like we're fooling around. We're always having fun. I'm always laughing. How did I create that? Oh, it's taken a long time, but I have the right people. It really boils down to that. And when it's not the right person, I always say that I'm a little bit witchy and I can smell it. Like I'm like, they're not going to last. And I always give people an opportunity because you just never know what can blossom. And I've been surprised a couple of times in my past, and those people are still here. They're still here with me. The ones that don't last, there's a really good reason. But honestly, I keep in really good communication with anybody who's been previous in my office because you never know where you're going to see them again or bump into them again later in life.
Gotcha. And just for that, and this is not a question, I'm not a Poddex question. For those that we didn't talk about, how many team members do you have and what positions do they hold?
So I have one front desk person. I have two hygienists. I have one assistant, one part-time assistant, and I'm looking for another full-time assistant right now.
Gotcha. So small team. It's still a small team. So gotcha. All right. Who has been the most important person in your network on your journey to success?
Oof, professional or personal?
Could be a combination of both or separate.
I mean, my go-to is my best friend. I bounce everything off of her. It's really important for everybody to have a sounding board, a person who they can sound ideas that they're not going to be judged. But not too many people, because too many chefs in the kitchen, you get too many ideas from, nowhere to really go, especially if you're confused about something. It's really good to have somebody who knows you very well. We've been best friends since we're 9 years old. So she knows my whole entire life history. And her husband is a dentist. Not close enough nearby, but close enough where she's in the dental world. So she gets it. So that's really been, so shout out to Karen.
I'm curious about this one. What is one subscription you can't live without? Could be Netflix. I mean, it could be anything, The gym, if you work out at a gym.
It could be the gym.
I mean, every morning I wake up and there's a picture of you in my feed of you working out or doing something. So, I mean, that could be the subscription you can't live without. So,
I would say between the gym and Netflix, it's probably, they're pretty close to number one.
So, what is the number one thing people are always asking you for help with?
Probably Invisalign clean checks for right now and social media stuff. How to post, that kind of thing, just how to navigate the game, because you have to understand it in order to navigate it well. Same as clean checks. So, like I said, I run the Miami Study Club. So I get a lot of docs, texting me, can you look at this case for me and help me out? So between those two things, I'd say are the number one top things.
Okay. And last question, if you had the chance to start your career over again, what would you do differently?
In order to get exactly where I am today, right now, I had to go through all the steps that I went through. The pain, the suffering, the happiness, the turmoil, everything that I went through. I could not be right here today without all of those experiences, good, bad, ugly, otherwise. So it's hard to say. I don't know.
Nothing wrong. That's a great answer. I love that answer. So that was really great. So before we end and get your contact information, is there anything else you want? You have an open book now. You have an open forum. Is there anything else you want to let the viewers or listeners know about you, about your practice, about life? Any closing comments or anything?
Nothing. I love what I do. I'm very excited that, that you asked me to be on this podcast. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I have a lot of people around me that do support. So that's really the number one thing that I would leave with the listeners and the viewers is really, you got to have a support system in place to get to anywhere that you want to get to.
Gotcha. And then for those that are interested in finding more about you and your social media, et cetera, do you want to give your Instagram handles and your monikers so people can find you online?
Of course. On Instagram for my office, it's at @infinity_dental. My personal one is at Gina Marcus DMD. That's also my Facebook, so that works for both. I also have a Facebook for the office. I also am sitting in my med spa, actually, that I opened in January. So I'll give you that one too. And that one is at Infinity Med Spa Miami. That's the best way to contact me. Just send me a DM.
Gina, this was really great information. Thank you so much for delving into various topics on this. A lot of it was kind of improv. We didn't plan some of the conversations that we had. So I appreciate you letting me ask you the questions and being open and honest and upfront about those topics. Guys, if you like this episode, please do me a favor and share it. Please review it. Please subscribe. Please let your friends know about it. Let them subscribe too. This is all about growing this podcast. I'm honored to be able to have a voice and be able to chat with people like Gina, to help you grow your practice as well. And feel free to reach out to Gina if you have any questions about what she's done. And she's done an amazing job. And I see her on social media. Like I said, when I wake up in the morning, there's her workout picture, her workout video. So she's great at what she does, and definitely reach out for some assistance. And as I always end these podcasts, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, Gina, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.